You do not remember everything. Some of what you know about him comes from photographs, from things people told you, from the shape of his absence more than anything he actually said. If you lost your father when you were young, before you were old enough to truly know him, this video was made for you. Losing a parent in childhood is one of those experiences that changes the landscape of everything that comes after. Not always visibly, not always loudly, but completely. The world reorganizes itself around the absence. And because you were so young, because you did not yet have the words or the framework for what happened, you often could not explain what you were carrying. You just carried it. And the carrying looked, from the outside, like you were fine, like you had adjusted, like children do. But adjusting is not the same as not being affected. It never was. People around you may have said things like, "He is watching over you," or "He would be so proud." And those words were meant with love, but they sometimes landed in a strange place, because the truth is that what you needed was not to be watched over. You wanted him there, present, ordinary, sitting at the table, asking about your day, doing nothing in particular, and the distance between what you needed and what was possible is something that lives inside a grief that does not always have a name. And what comes next might put into words something you have felt for a very long time, but never quite found the language for. When you lose a father early, there are simply things that do not get passed on. Not because nobody loved you, but because he was not there to pass them. The particular way a father steadies a child when something is frightening. The specific weight of a hand on your shoulder that says, "I have done this before," and it is survivable. The quiet confidence that comes from being shown rather than only told. Without that, you learned to find your own steadiness. You held your own hand through the things that scared you. You developed a relationship with your own inner resources that most people your age did not have to develop so young. And while nobody would choose this, while this is not a fair trade for anything, the self-reliance you built in that space is real. It is entirely yours. And it is one of the quieter, more durable things that grew from the hardest beginning. There is a specific quality to the grief of losing a parent in childhood. It is not just the grief of losing someone. It is the grief of losing someone before you could fully know them, before you were old enough to ask the questions you now carry, before you had the chance to become who you are now in front of him. You may grieve him differently at different points in your life, missing him at your first important day in a way that is different from how you missed him at 7, shaped differently, again by who you have become and who he might have been there to see. There are milestones he should have been at, ordinary moments he should have been part of, and his absence in those moments is not smaller for being expected. It is sometimes larger. This grief does not end and it does not stay the same. It changes as you change. And the fact that you have learned to carry it, to move through life with this particular weight without being stopped by it, is something most people around you simply cannot see or fully understand. And this next one explains a kind of searching that may have shaped years of your life without you fully realizing it. Many people who lose a father young describe a particular experience in the years that follow. A searching that does not always have a clear object. You may have looked for it in certain friendships, in relationships with older people who seemed steady and certain, in the particular warmth of teachers or mentors who showed up consistently, in places and communities that felt like they might offer something you did not receive at home, sometimes in a partner, in a boss, in a friend who had a quality you could not quite name but could not stop gravitating toward. This is not a flaw, it is completely understandable. A child who loses a father is a child who lost a particular kind of presence in the world, a specific anchor, and the search for something that might approximate it is entirely human. What matters is that as you come to understand the shape of what you were looking for, the search becomes more honest, less about filling a hole, and more about understanding what the hole actually is. And that understanding changes everything. Children who lose a parent early often grow up faster than their peers, not because they chose to, but because loss accelerates something. You understood things about impermanence, about love, about the fact that people leave, that your friends did not yet have language for. You may have been described as mature for your age, serious, an old soul, and while those descriptions were not wrong, they sometimes missed what was underneath them. The maturity was real, but it came with a cost. The lightness that childhood is supposed to carry, the long, uninterrupted stretch of ordinary days, was shortened for you. You became careful in ways that children perhaps should not need to be careful. And that carefulness, that early seriousness, is still part of how you move through the world today. And this last one is something I want you to hear as a truth, not as a consolation, but as something more honest than that. The space that his absence created in your life did not stay empty. Something grew there, not instead of him, and not as a reward for losing him, but in the particular conditions that his absence created. A relationship with your own inner life that most people never need to develop. A depth of understanding about loss and love and impermanence that shapes how you see everything. A kind of seriousness about the people you love, about not taking ordinary days for granted, about what actually matters and what does not, that came from understanding too early how quickly the ordinary can end. These things are yours. They were built in hard soil, but they are real, and they are deep, and they belong entirely to you. Nobody gave them to you. You grew them yourself, in the space where something else was supposed to be. Something worth saying about fathers who are lost young. They do not stop shaping the people who loved them. The qualities that are remembered, the things he was known for, the stories that were told, the values that were passed on even in the brief time he was there. These travel forward. You carry something of him whether or not you have clear memories. It lives in the things people told you about him, in the ways you sometimes recognize yourself in a story someone tells, in the qualities you have developed that, when someone who knew him sees them, make them say quietly, "That is exactly him." The thread does not break just because the person did. And before we finish, the one thing I want to leave with you. You grew up without something that was supposed to be there. That is simply true, and nothing in this video changes it or makes it fair. But you have also become someone shaped by that absence in ways that go deeper than most people's formation. You have sat with loss in a way that most people do not encounter until much later in life. You have found your own steadiness. You have carried something heavy without much acknowledgement of what it actually weighed. This week, try one small thing. If there is a question you have about him that you have never asked someone who knew him, ask it. A story, a memory, a detail about who he was before you were old enough to know him. What made him laugh, what he worried about, what he was like on an ordinary Tuesday. Every piece you gather is something real, and you deserve to know him as fully as the people around you can help you know him. If someone you know needed to hear this today, a friend, a sibling, someone who grew up the same way, share this with them. Take care of yourself, and we will see you next time.
And I'll see you again soon.